Thank you very much to the Indian Police Foundation, to the president of the Police Foundation himself, a very, very eminent police officer, Mr. Ramchandran, and of course to the chairman, who is Prakash Singh, who is also a very reputed name and feared name as far as the police is concerned, and my old friend Vipul, and the moderator Manoj Mitra, and of course till now my colleague in the Rajya Sabha, Mr. K.T.S. Tulsi. I mean, it's not his fault that we are no longer colleagues, but I left the Rajya Sabha. He continues to be there. And the Justice Singhvi, of course, and the very distinguished audience here. I mean, this issue of police reform is something that has been plaguing us for many, many decades now. Needless to say that without enforcing the rule of the law, no democratic civil society can exist. Now, that is a taken. I mean, it's a fundamental principle. The moot point is, how do you execute it? How do you implement it? Yes, police reform by itself is very important. There have been many instances, some of them have been referred to, some cases that have been also talked about, but I do not think, and that has been my limited experience, both as a lawmaker and as a political activist, that police reform by itself cannot succeed. If you want really meaningful police reform, it has to be accompanied by political reform and by judicial reform. And this is not, of course, to say nothing, I'm not making any innuendos about the character of the police or what needs to be done, etc. But without that, I, honestly speaking, belong to a party which have had state governments. We've had an important role to play in the central government. And we cannot really come to terms with one factor, that as long as the tenure and the stability of the posting of a police officer is at the beck and control of the political masters, I mean, how do you expect that efficiency to come? Very rarely you'll have, people like Mr. Prakash Singh or Mr. Ramchandran who'll actually come out and dare to face it. But this is a fundamental area that requires a very, very deep discussion and a reform. Take, for instance, a problem that you have IPS officers who are central cadre with the Home Ministry, posted to a state. The final loyalty, where would it lie? What would be the post-retirement postings? Who will be doing it? So the pressures that are extra professional, that are mounted on all these things, these are issues that need to be very seriously relooked. We've done a lot of work as parliamentarians in the Parliamentary Standing Committee in Home Affairs on the question of police reform. We've discussed it and called for evidence from various sources and all the paramilitary forces and the agencies and their leaders. But yet this fundamental problem of the linkage between the reforms that are needed in the political structure and administration of law and order and the actual exercise of the implementation of the law and order, which is the job of the police to do, that needs to be not merely fine-tuned, but I think a radical restructuring is required, for which we all have to be prepared to. Now, as a political party, I can only confess that the biggest obstacle has always been the political parties. But I have one advantage. I keep saying that we are opposed to, as a party, we are opposed to intellectual property rights. But if there's any intellectual property right, my party deserves the trademark or the monopoly for one right, and that is outside support. So we only give outside support. We don't have stakes inside the government and running. Therefore, postings, etc., are not of such consequence. But that's not the case with other political parties. And that is a serious issue which we need to address. We are prepared as a political party to any colloquia, the Law Commission ones, the Police Foundation. If you call all the leaders of all the parties, I think there will be a very good initiative. The Police Foundation could consider that and call the leaders of all the political parties and let us frankly address this issue. This needs to be done. Otherwise, what Manoj has just pointed out the instances, Pehlu Khan is actually officially not dead. I mean, in the sense there's nobody who killed him. but only that there's only a dead body. Or you take that Baba's case. And I mean, things like this with direct police, with political interference happen. Now, you talked about the death of a journalist, a very young journalist, Santanu Bhaumik in Tripura yesterday. Gauri Lankesh, we all know what happened to her. We all know what's happened to Dabholkar, 4 years now, 4 years. Dabholkar, Pansare, Kalburgi, now Gauri Lankesh. And you have these Gaurakshak armies going around. Today, I believe the Hon'ble Court has asked for a compliance report from the state governments. That has come out this morning, I heard. But these are instances which are pan-Indian. It requires the central government's initiative in order to ban such groups from taking law into their own hands. Now, how do you address this? Unless you address political reform and a certain code, whereby the independence of an institution like the police will have to be safeguarded, and that cannot be interfered or tampered with for the pursuit of a political objective of whoever be the ruling party at that point of time. Now, this is a serious issue that needs to be done. The other end of the spectrum is that even when police does a very efficient job, the question of delivery of justice is often very, very delayed. And if that continues, Mr. Singhvi is here, he can tell us how to improve that thing. But if you don't deliver justice for 2 decades, 3 decades, even after cases have been filed, investigation has been done, the real faith in the entire system just falls through. So a rule of law, if you want a police without fear and favor, if they have to act, then political reforms and judicial reforms must go hand in hand. And that is my sincere submission. I can go into the details of many things of how police should behave, or that India today has one of the lowest, I think, population and police force proportion. I think we are the lowest in the world. I mean, we are at least 3 times lower than the ideal that the United Nations has prescribed. For how many people do you require 1 policeman? And bulk of the problems in India are actually associated with your local police stations, where the police is totally understaffed and ill-equipped. And it is the local policeman, your station officer, your beat policeman, if they are the ones who are able to be equipped to discharge the job, a lot of these problems of law-abiding society can be ensured. Now, we'll have to think in those terms. Modernization of the police, where various reports we've been through. We've gone through and prepared reports, but none of them are actually seeing the light of the day. But this, I think, has to be taken up in a holistic manner. That's why I would only hope that a bold radical vision is required, is what the presentation here tells me. And a bold radical vision will have to be taken up when the Police Foundation will persuade all of us as political parties, and also some of eminent jurists and former justices who are not today serving, naturally, but who also to come in and put us all together. You be there, the politician will be there, the judiciary will be there, and let us see how we fine-tune now the democratic civil society on the basis of the principles enshrined in our preamble of our Constitution. How do we ensure that that becomes that will create a better India? And I only hope that in the next time when you invite me, it will be to something of that nature. And therefore, thank you very much for coming in, allowing me to express this opinion. We've done it in the Parliament, we've done it to the governments, but I'm only wanting to do it to very distinguished policemen who have served our country and whose intention is to continue to serve and be active. And therefore, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Very good afternoon to respected dignitaries. Sir, as you pointed out in your speech that the local police stations today are very much understaffed. So how do you see the problem in emerging in contemporary era of digital challenge or the cyber crimes which are emerging today? When the police is not capable of the basic crimes, how do you see that they are going to meet the cyber challenge?
Good question.
Well, very good question, and I'm really, very honestly, I'm more worried about it than you are. And I've said it also when I was there in the parliament, that the way the cyber, this whole structure that is evolving in our country is, I don't know if you remember, a very epoch-making film that came out some decades ago called The Matrix. The Matrix at that time, I think it was a little too forward-looking, but now we can understand it better. So you and I have a number, and we are all there on the Matrix, and when the number vanishes, you're gone. Now, that is your Aadhaar number now. So if it just vanishes, then you are out of the matrix. Now, we have such very serious problems. It's not only about crime, but also utilization of this medium for spreading messages which can generate, hatred and law and order problems, which is happening. So you require a very, very serious discussion on addressing the cyber laws in our country. And India today, I'm very sorry to say, but we top the world in terms of number of states where you have cut off your internet services. The largest instance of cutting off internet services employed by the states in India, because it comes under the law and order comes as a state subject, is the highest in the world today. So it depends on the political persuasion of what is happening and then when you want to cut it off. So all this is a very, very new and a very, very grey area. Cyber laws in our country need to be restructured and defined, and it has to be done very urgently.
Mr. Prakash Singh, do you have a question to him?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'd also like to.
Mr. Yechury, I listened to you with great respect. The thrust of your argument was that police reforms cannot be taken up in isolation, and they have to be taken up in conjunction with political reforms and judicial reforms. No doubt about it. I entirely agree that we have to move for reforms in different sectors. But the point is, the vicious chain has to be broken somewhere. And you cannot make this an excuse for not supporting or pushing the police reforms agenda because the demand for political reforms or the demand for judicial reforms is not that vocal, not that strong. As I said, a beginning has to be made.
Correct. I have never said this. In fact, I am on record. I began by saying police reform, yes, but not only.
Yes.
That is the point. But police reform, please, I'm on record and by committees in the parliament that we had fully supported the suggestions made for the police reform, for the modernization, for the question of augmenting its force, for the question of better training and better, all the other things that followed. So on that you have our full support. We will support you fully on that. I'm only going beyond that, which you cannot go. Only I can go as a political party, saying stop this political interference in a professional force.
In fact, that is the crux of our demand.
That is the crux, sir.
Insulation from outside pressures.
That is the crux.
And another way of putting it is, as somebody said, unless we have the political will, this police reforms is not going to take off the ground. So political will is part of the police reforms. So they all have to be something that has to be done together. Yeah, please.
But Mr. Yechury seemed to hint that the state governments don't trust IPS officers because their loyalties are to the center.
No, you see, I didn't ascribe any motive or any insinuation. I said that. I said what? That they are central officers working in the state. Law and order is a state subject. But these are officers of a central force. You have similar problem with IAS officers. You'll have Secretary Agriculture, IAS in a state. Agriculture is a state subject. The state will draft a law for land acquisition, which is in violation of the central law of the parliament. In Andhra Pradesh, the secretary has there's a law for land pooling. In essence, it violates your central law. Now, these are areas and problems that require to be addressed. You are 7 decades old now as an independent country. We have also accumulated our experience. So what I'm urging is that we have to evaluate all this. It's not a question of loyalty, that I'm loyal to the Home Ministry in Delhi and therefore not to the government in the state. No, that's not the way I put it. I said in the discharge of responsibilities, there is a conflict of interest. Hi, sir. So that is precisely, my point is to address this issue. This needs to be addressed.
Organizers want to present a bouquet to him, so please, a bouquet on the stage for Mr. Yechury.